Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. My name is Channie Mize, and I'm the General Manager for Slalom, Ohio. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Donnie Slavens, who's the CIO at First Financial Bank. Hi, Donnie.
Hey, Channie, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good. Thanks for having me.
So, you and I have had the pleasure of speaking before about generative AI. And one of the things we spoke about last time was the fact that Gen AI is in the midst of a hype cycle. But we know all hype cycles eventually die out or scale out. And so, really, the race right now seems to be about scaling and how to drive past the hype into value.
Mhm.
So, I would love to know, in your role at First Financial Bank, what's been your philosophy and approach with generative AI?
Yeah, sure. And it is the buzz topic to talk about, right? And I'm very excited to talk about it. I would say, Channie, my philosophy really is right now, it's to really just better understand how we as a bank or we as an industry, especially in my role, can utilize Gen AI to enhance, operations, maybe improve customer experiences, and really just ensure that we're just not adopting technology for its own sake, but really trying to align to our core business goals here at First Financial. I think that, as far as an approach, I think it's about finding that balance between innovation and responsible implementation from a technology perspective. We know that a lot of Gen AI right now is out improving operational efficiencies. There's customer engagement happening. I do think it's speeding up decision-making processes. It shouldn't be solely making decisions, but I do think it helps speed up those decision-making processes. And it's really about finding that balance between risk management and ethical considerations, and et cetera. So I'd say my approach, that was my philosophy. My approach, I would say some would call it conservative. I call it, being careful and purpose driven. So I think, it's really all about what is the strategic investment that we're going to make using Gen AI? What are the use cases that help support the company's strategy that we have right now? I think it's important to dive into the lines of businesses and work with leaders to find out what are the use cases in their business where Gen AI could possibly help. And then I think, risk management is always forefront, understanding the risk as it applies to the business. So, when I think about my philosophy and my approach, that kind of sums it up.
That's great. I love what you said about being purpose driven and how you use generative AI. And I think that's really important. So many times we see that people are running countless experiments, but maybe not with purpose. And so, talk to me a little bit about how you infuse purpose and how you choose what you're going to do with generative AI.
Yeah, I think again, purpose really is understanding the business strategy and using Gen AI to do that. AI has been around a while, so we're already using robotic process automation. We're already using certain aspects of machine learning, but specifically to Gen AI, it's where does that efficiency come to play, and do we have the right governance to utilize those in our business cases?
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, Gen AI is kind of buzzy, but AI has been around for a really long time and people
Right.
have been using it all kinds of different ways. And then
That's
all of
right.
a sudden, Gen AI came on and was like, oh, we've never had this before.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously a little bit of hype there, but kind of where do you think we are in the maturation cycle for Gen AI? You think we're still kind of early days, or do you think we're maturing past that at this point?
I think we're at the peak, and maybe coming off of the peak of the hype. If we look at all technologies go through this, right, Chaney? So if we look at blockchain, went through the hype, and not sure where that is right now, but I don't think it's right now changing certain things. The metaverse, I mean, you can think about cryptocurrency, all the new technologies go through this hype cycle, and I think Gen AI is certainly at the peak of expectations. But I do think it's gonna settle out over the next 2 to 3 years, where it can scale and start using. But it's not going to come without some big drop of overinflative expectations, is the way I think Gardner phrases it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've seen some of the stories where some of them have tricked Gen AI sales to buy a truck for $1. Some guys did that, and then the airlines, obviously they got sued because of some AI response regarding bereavement affairs and things like that. So it's just interesting. I think it'll scale out over time. A lot of banks are doing pilots and proof of concepts right now. I have some CIO. I was at a CIO roundtable, and some of the banks are out there using Copilot. They're ready to get in and seeing if it can drive efficiencies. I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but I do understand how some of them are doing some of the proof of concepts today.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you're right on the money in terms of where you think the maturation is. You mentioned Gartner. I was reading an article by Gartner, and they said that for most organizations, 2024 is really the year of experimentation, and the
Mhm.
results are actually going to scale in 25. And then by 2028, it's going to be ubiquitous. It's just going to be part of the way we do work.
Yeah,
Which pretty much aligns, I think, with the timetable you had also laid out.
yeah.
Um, so, and
To
then just,
if sorry if I can, I think the shift to scaling really is going to be those tangible use cases that's going to demonstrate those productivity gains. Again, what's going to really help the business drive strategy. And for us, it could be improving customer experience, like I said before, or even enhancing fraud capabilities. So I think the journey to the full scale adoption over the next several years is really going to be overcoming those challenges for AI and how do you govern it? What's the proper risk management? What's regulatory compliance? So those are some of the key challenges that we're going to face as this technology scales past the hype cycle.
yeah, absolutely. You've mentioned productivity with generative AI, and
Yeah.
I think what I've seen mostly have been use cases associated with productivity. Have you
Yes.
started seeing anything on the growth side or on going beyond productivity, or still in the productivity phase?
Gosh, I mean, I think I agree with you. I think the productivity gains right now is really still the major focus. Again, we're seeing Gen AI streamline in some of the solutions and automate some routine tasks, which RPA did before, but I think we're starting to see Gen AI overlay on top of some of that. I mentioned fraud detections, but I really think for it to move up, to get, the value creation, the value chain, and create growth, it really does have to pivot more to customer-centric solutions. So putting the customer first and understanding how can we solve customer problems and serve the customer better. I think that's going to drive the value chain and create growth for Gen AI. So, again, customer-centric, innovative product offerings for customers. We're already starting to see some of that. Customers are going to drive it, obviously. And then, and again, like I said, speed up decision making. If we can get faster speed to market because of Gen AI technology, then let's take a look at that. But I do think the value chain is going to really be driven by customer centric, putting customers first.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely believe that. I think it's good for the customer, obviously, and it's good for business. And
Mhm.
ultimately, I also think it's good for the employee too, because if customers are
Yes.
happy, then it's
Yeah.
good for the employees. So it's good for everybody. Now, kind of shifting a little bit into regulation, how do you
Mhm.
feel production use of generative AI will impact regulation both positively and negatively?
Yeah, I mean, first we know that Gen AI has received a lot of attention from the regulators already. The White House released an executive order in 23, so we all became aware of the positioning that the government is starting to take. As a matter of fact, last month, or actually in March of 24, the Treasury Department released their first report of Gen AI and artificial intelligence in the financial sector. So there's already a lot of regulation and a lot of notice, I guess, being taken on Gen AI. But I think it's really going to have a dual impact on regulation. I think, Gen AI is not going anywhere. I think this is one of the technologies that will be around and will continue to listen. We did this with cloud, right?
Right.
So Gen AI, the technology is going to drive new laws and it's going to drive new regulations, and we're going to have to figure out, what use cases and how we're going to approach it to govern. So, on the positive side, I think it's going to drive new regulation and it's going to allow us to use the technology. On the downside, I think it's going to, as it becomes more adopted, it's going to receive a lot more scrutiny. And a lot of concerns around data privacy issues. We already see some things happening around identity and authentication. Is it real, et cetera? So again, there's downsides and there's positive sides, but certainly there's going to be new regulations and new laws that we're going to have to adapt to, as we did any technology that continues to improve our business models.
Absolutely. And actually, regulation tends to lag behind new technologies, as you've pointed out.
Yeah,
And there'll be a catch-up period, and then we'll be
there will
into the
be.
business of regulation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, that was my last big question, but I just wondered if you had any other final parting thoughts on Gen AI and how you think it'll go in the future.
Yeah, I mean, right now I think it's going to continue as we discussed. I think it's going to focus more on productive. What are the productivity gains? I think companies are still trying to understand Gen AI, the technology, how employees use it, how they're going to use it as a company and for business strategy, and companies are just now putting policies and procedures around it. We're absolutely doing the same. How do we write a policy for it? How do we control it, but still let is there use cases where we can become better at the business? So, I think that's short term. I think long term, you said it in some of your opening remarks that Gardner says by 2028, companies are going to use solutions that have Gen AI embedded in them, or I think it was 60% of replacement or something like that. So I think
Right.
that's what we're going to see, in the future. I think we're going to see deeper and broader integrations from vendors into their solutions. It's going to be, I think it's going to be called AI embedded or Gen AI embedded into these solutions. And I think that's some of the risk framework too, is we're going to have to get in front of it and work with the vendors to understand that, hey, just don't turn this on. Let us understand how it's working, what the models are, and then let's work together as partners to enhance the business. So I think it's an exciting time. Productivity gains right now, and then future, I think it will scale out. And in 5 years from now, we're gonna look back and just be amazed at how much Gen AI is helping us in the technology and our business at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I think in 5 years, you and I are going to do this interview again, but we're going to be talking
Yeah.
about completely different technology. And be like, what, Gen AI? That was so, 2024.
Right. I mean, 5 years ago, I was talking about blockchain, so and cloud,
Yeah.
right? So it is very interesting times, but I guess it's what keeps us exciting, especially in this role.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I do have one more final question. You spurred a
Yeah.
thought to me. The productivity gain is a real stat that gets thrown out, anywhere between 30 to 50% productivity gain as a result of generative AI. And I
Mhm.
think it has a number of folks in certain roles very concerned that they may not be valuable anymore in the workforce. I
Mhm.
certainly have an impression that the human is always valuable because you can't replicate a human. They are,
Yeah.
we are unique, right?
Yeah.
But I love your
Yeah.
perspective on that. How do you think Gen AI either helps employees or workers, or does it harm employees or workers?
Yeah, and it feels like this question again comes up with every new technology, right? I remember when we first introduced robotic process automation, everyone was wondering, "Oh my gosh, is it going to replace my job, or is it going to replace workers?" I think what it does is, at one, it enhances processes, but it lets us take mundane tasks and maybe operational efficiencies that are just repetitive, and use technology to solve those and take that time and put it to more skilled, let people focus on more skilled work, more value work that brings back to the business and again the customers as well. So I don't think Gen AI is going to replace. Certainly with any new technology, there's always some kind of replacement. We saw it, way back in the beginning when factories started using robots to make cars. So obviously technology is going to continue to improve, but I think it's not necessarily going to replace jobs. It's going to let us use the roles and the people that are in those jobs on more valuable customer centric opportunities.
Yeah, and we've come full circle back to customer centricity, which
Right.
actually is the way to drive business impact. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I absolutely agree. I think Gen AI actually helps make employees better. And so, if we can adopt it and find a way to work with it, it gets us a leg up on the next piece of work, or it helps us drive
Right.
more creativity.
Yep. Yeah, I certainly think Gen AI is going to, it's a cornerstone of this new digital revolution or digital transformation, I guess you can call it if we want to use a buzzword from the past, but it really is going to drive innovation for us. But it really does have to be safe, trustworthy, and reliable. And that's really what we have to make sure we put in as a priority as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great last words. Well, thank you so much, Donnie Slavens, for joining me today. For
Channie,
all
thank you.
out there watching this, please visit at ceomagazine.tech for additional interviews.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.